Fundraising for Nonprofits, What Donors Want. Today we are sharing how to tackle the world of Facebook. We all know that it can feel overwhelming, especially when there are significant updates. So we have two experts sharing exactly what you need to know right now for your Facebook fundraising strategy. And as always, we'll be sending a recording of this webinar and the webinar slides to all of our registrants via email. We do want you to encourage to submit your questions throughout the presentations into the questions box on your control panel. At the end, there'll be time for having a Q&A session with our panelists. And now, without further ado, let me introduce today's panel of experts. Taylor Shanklin is Vice President of Product Marketing and Strategy at Pursuant, a full-service fundraising agency helping nonprofits go through the ordinary to reach their goals. With over a decade spent serving nonprofits, Taylor's passions and purpose is to help charitable organizations connect the dots between marketing, technology, and fundraising. Zanika Covington is part of the digital marketing services team here at Mobile Cause. Zanika advises and guides our customers with fundraising and donor engagement strategies that drive impact. She has helped countless nonprofits exceed their fundraising goals based on her expertise of the Mobile Cause platform and heart for digital fundraising. And they have put together an information-packed agenda for you today. First, we will hear from Taylor on understanding the new Facebook algorithm and how to pick the best ad options for your goal. Then we will hear from Zanika on the power of Facebook Live and online storytelling, and how to boost donations through a unified donor experience. All of this will help your nonprofit leverage Facebook with confidence so you can create more powerful connections and drive fundraising. So let's get this all started by taking a quick poll. And I'll launch our first poll. Poll number 1. What is the biggest challenge with Facebook fundraising? Is it knowledge of the platform, no staff to help manage, knowing what to share and when, having no budgets for paid ads, or feeling like there's more you should do? And let's just give everyone a few more moments to select their biggest challenge. Excellent, thank you, and let's see what the results are. Knowing what to share and when. Thank you, everyone. And next, let's pass it over to Taylor. Taylor?
All right. Hi there. How is everyone today? So I saw in those polls answers that I see a lot, and I'm hoping that some of the content that we share today can help you with, just some of the general feelings of not knowing what to do around Facebook and your Facebook strategy. So thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Taylor Shanklin. I run the marketing at Pursuant, which is a full-service fundraising agency that was built by fundraisers and marketers for fundraisers and marketers, really with the goal to help organizations reach more donors and raise more dollars. And I'm excited to be here talking about Facebook today because it's a really big topic and one that I think we can go on and on about for months, but I want to break down some simple things and give you some quick tips that you can do today, and I think that's what we're going to talk about in the coming slides. And then when we pass it over to Zanika, she's got some great tips for you on things that you can do easily and start to implement today. Next slide. So before we get into the meat of the conversation, I saw this in the answers to the poll question, with many of you feeling like there's a lot to do, it can be overwhelming. And so I just want to acknowledge that, because that is true. There is a lot of information flying at us these days from all different directions. There are a lot of different social media platforms. So, you know, trying to get your head around which ones to focus on can be frustrating, and it can feel like a lot. You're not alone. A lot of organizations and fundraisers feel this way. And it can put just about anyone into what I like to call the grumpy cat mode. You know, it's that mode where you throw your hands in the air and you just kind of say, you feel like grumpy cat and you say, I don't have the resources or the bandwidth, and I'm just going to say no. But I don't think that it has to be that way. I don't think that you have to feel all the time like you have to do all the things, right? I think it's more about identifying the most important things. And so in today's conversation, I'd like to bring into the mix practicality and talk about things that you can easily do, and try to break down that kind of fear of feeling like, oh, I've got to know everything about Facebook all the time to be able to even do it. Let's talk about and tackle some things that are relevant to our world as fundraisers, and talk about some things that you can easily do. So speaking of important things, I put Facebook in the bucket of the important things. And I do that because the data says that it's important. When you look at these usage statistics of Facebook, and these were taken from the Pew Research Center, you can see that 79% of American internet users are on Facebook. It's still one of the largest social media platforms. I would say that most people in your world who you're wanting to engage to donate to your cause and support your cause are probably on Facebook. And so I think when we think about, you know, which social media platforms to focus on, Facebook is a big one, and it still continues to be, I think, one of the most important ones. Another thing I want to talk about in looking at these statistics on this slide is that the time spent on mobile devices. 80% of the time spent on social media platforms is happening on mobile. The reason why I think this is so important to your strategy when thinking about how to engage on Facebook and how to fundraise on Facebook is because I think Facebook is a place of discovery. You know, we probably all have those moments in the day, throughout the day, where we have 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there. You know, maybe you're waiting in line in the carpool line to pick up your kid from school, or maybe you're at a doctor's office going to a doctor's appointment. You've got 5 minutes while you're waiting. And so I think it's really important to think about how Facebook is a place where people are often taking that 5 minutes to check in, and that's where we can discover new things. That new thing might one day be your organization. They might see someone talking about your organization. So I think it's really important to think about Facebook in this way. Okay, so all of that being said, let's talk about some of the recent updates that I think are relevant to our world as fundraisers and nonprofit organizations. Let me just say that it's been really, really interesting to watch some of the changes that Facebook has been making in the past 6 months. Facebook is constantly throwing us for a loop. They're an innovative company that's often doing new things, breaking new boundaries, and doing interesting stuff, and it can keep us on our toes. I think there's been some positive things that they've been doing, particularly for our nonprofit world in the past 6 months. The first one that I noticed was back in November, kind of in one fell swoop, they announced that they're going to be working to open up the Facebook fundraiser API. I think in the long grand scheme of things, that's going to help and open up more doors to integrations between other platforms, maybe your CRM system with Facebook's fundraising capabilities. So that's a really interesting one to know about. With that, they also announced dropping their 5% fee that they charge to nonprofits who fundraise to Facebook. Now, for clarification, that means that if you have an organization page set up for your nonprofit and you have a donate button, they used to charge a 5% fee, processing fee, credit card fee, and they're dropping that fee. There is still going to be a fee on personal fundraisers that people set up through Facebook, but they are dropping that fee for your donate button that you set up. Just to move a little bit forward, in February, they announced that there's going to be a greater emphasis on local news. But to back up a little bit and talk about what I really want to get into today is this algorithm change to the news feed. They announced it in January. And when the announcement came out, a lot of people in the industry started saying, oh my goodness, what is this going to do for my content at my organization showing up in people's news feeds? So we're going to talk about that. What Facebook announced when they announced the algorithm change and how the news feed, the main news feed on Facebook is going to change, was really a focus around creating more meaningful engagement, and something that I've been seeing the company talk about, creating a stronger community. And I think all of these things that they've been doing that I've got listed up here on this slide affect the nonprofit world because they're all pretty focused on creating stronger community, and that's something that the company's been talking about. To quote Mark Zuckerberg with the newsfeed announcement, he said, "Recently, we've gotten feedback from our community that public content posts from businesses, brands, and media is crowding out the personal moments that lead us to connect more with each other. As we roll this out, you'll see less public content like posts from businesses, brands, and media, and the public content you see will be held to the same standard. It should encourage more meaningful interactions between people." End of quote. So that's the thing that I think threw people for a loop. Like, is my content that I'm sharing on my organization's page not going to be seen anymore as much in the newsfeed? But I want to talk about how you can, as an organization, embrace that and create those meaningful conversations that the company is talking about. So I think there's some best practices on how to do this. First thing that I want to note is that when the company made the announcement about the newsfeed changes, they also stated in that people who create fundraisers on Facebook to support an organization, that stuff is still going to show up in the newsfeed. So when you're thinking about, how can I get people to be talking about me and fundraising for me more on Facebook, think about a strategy that talks to your donors and your fans about, hey, did you know you could go create a Facebook campaign on your own in Facebook, and that will support us. I don't know about you guys, but I see just about on a daily, definitely a weekly basis, a friend of mine on Facebook starting a new fundraiser. So I think that's a really important thing to note, that those things are getting a lot of front and center attention, and you can be thinking about how to gear your strategy towards driving people to create those fundraisers to support you. Another thing that the company talked about in this big announcement about the news change was their emphasis on video, and particularly live video. Facebook live video is a really interesting thing because whether or not you are live, it always sort of still looks live. So you can go live on a video, and then that live video continues to remain kind of at the top of the page and popular on your page, and can often still give people this sort of like live video effect. Zanika is going to share some great examples. We get into the weeds on how to create the best live videos and to really tailor your storytelling in those. So be thinking about that, how you can do more video as your strategy progresses with these Facebook changes. And then the last thing I want to mention here is to just do a gut check. Before you post anything on Facebook, before you share anything, take a step back. Take a step back outside of yourself and ask, is this actually engaging? Is this something that I think people might want to comment on and create a conversation around? Does it tell a story? Does it show impact? I think those are really important things. It's very easy to get into the day-to-day grind and think, well, I just need to post something every day. But I think we really need to take a step back from ourselves sometimes and ask, is this content actually going to be engaging? I love the example here on the slide over on the right from the Humane Society of the baby raccoon. I think it was a Facebook Live video they showed of the baby raccoon. That's the sort of thing where like it tells a fun story. People like cute baby animals. It's engaging, and it got a ton of views and a ton of traction. Okay, so those are some best practices for the Facebook algorithm. A last one that I want to talk about, both as a best practice for continuing to engage your page and get eyeballs on your organization's page, but also just kind of a common question I get is Facebook advertising. This is a way to still be seen in the news feed, and it's also something to think about how to really truly invest in Facebook advertising. Something that I feel like I hear a lot and read a lot about when it comes to Facebook advertising is what I'm going to call the great debate of boosted posts versus Facebook ad campaigns. Should I just click on that little boost button and boost my post because it's kind of nice and easy, or should I actually develop out an ad campaign within the ad manager? So let's talk a little bit about some of those differences. A boosted post can be really tempting to click on the button. It's really easy. You post some content and then you see that little, hey, you could boost this post and reach so many people by just clicking on this button. And it is just kind of a few clicks away. I think boosting posts is a good tactic if your goal is engagement. And by engagement, I mean just getting likes, getting impressions, getting more eyeballs on that particular piece of content. So I think of that as an awareness strategy. When it comes to targeting very specific calls to action, targeting very specific audiences, that's where I recommend putting a little bit more time and effort into actually going into the ads manager console within Facebook and building out an ad campaign. The ad campaign gives you a lot more options in terms of your targeting your audience. You can target interests and behaviors, and you don't get as much specificity with the boosted post option as you do with building out an ad campaign. With building out an ad campaign, you can also include additional pictures, additional videos. So there's just a lot more flexibility that you have with an ad campaign over a boosted post. Lastly, the last thing I'll say about an ad campaign is you can also have a specific call to action button. So you can have a CTA button that says donate now or register for our event. That's a great way to use an ad campaign over a boosted post. If you are having a gala and you want people to go attend, or a golf tournament you want people to sign up for, or maybe you are having a run or a walk or something like that, that's a great way to, and a great time to create an ad where you can have a button that links out to your registration page. Let's say it's Giving Tuesday, or you're running the Giving Day campaign or something like that. That's a great opportunity to run an ad where you can have a clear call to action button. That's a donate button that goes to your donation form. All right, one more thing I want to note about Facebook ads. If you're gonna take the time and the money to invest in doing some Facebook advertising, be sure you install the Facebook pixel on your website. Each organization page has a unique Facebook pixel. You'll find it within your Facebook account, and you just want to make sure that you get that installed on your website, because that's going to help you have better tracking data to kind of see the full picture of how Facebook advertising is or isn't converting for you. So really important to make sure, if you're going to spend all the time and the effort to do Facebook ads, to get that tracking pixel installed on your website. Okay, last thing I'm going to say here, in the grand scheme of things, I want to kind of talk about the way that I look at Facebook advertising, because I do get questions about, well, is it worth the money? Is it worth the investment? Does it really drive donations? This is my 2 cents. I look at Facebook as a great awareness play. And by that, I mean, I think it's a great way to get more eyeballs on your cause, create more awareness, and build your audience. So if you're looking to grow your fan base, to grow your audience, to just drive more awareness, I do think that Facebook advertising can be a great tool for that to help you do it more quickly. Okay. If you're still, I know this does not get into the weeds of how to build a Facebook ad or anything like that. If you're looking on how to do that, there are so many resources out there. If you go to Google and just type in how to run a Facebook ad, you will see a plethora of articles and information on the subject, things that will walk you through exactly how to do it. Okay, so let's say I advanced too quickly there. Let's say you do start to create more engagement on Facebook and you do start to maybe run some ads on Facebook, and then you find yourself in this pickle thinking, well, what do I really need to report on? There's a lot you can report on and measure. There's always a lot you can report on and measure, but I want to talk about the things that I think are the most important and the way you can think about it. I think you want to think about the who, what, how, when, and which. So who is it that engages with your content? What content has the highest engagement rate? How are they accessing Facebook? Are they accessing it on mobile device, on desktop? When is your audience on Facebook the most often? You can look for patterns of when people who are in your audience are on the most. And then lastly, as we talk about video, which videos seem to be resonating with people? As you start to get more video engagement on Facebook, start to look at which videos get more likes, get more shares, get more comments, and which ones don't. And then take a step back and think about what was the video about? What was the content of the one that got liked and shared a lot versus what was the content of the one that maybe didn't get liked or shared as much? And then start tailoring your videos and your storytelling more towards that. You can easily access these insights through Facebook. If you go to your Facebook page, click on the Insights tab, it'll pull up a screen that looks like the one here on this slide deck, and you can drill into a lot more. You can look at engagement rates. That's how much people are actually interacting with your content, whether either via a like or a share or a comment. So there's a lot that you can get from Facebook pretty easily just by going to the Insights tab. It also allows you to download insights. If you want to dig deeper and you want to go back further in time, you can actually export page insights, get it as an Excel file, and then if you've got someone who really loves Excel and data crunching on your team, then you can hand that over to them and let them do a little bit more digging on that information. All right, so last couple of takeaways I want to give to you before handing it over to Danica are, if you do anything today from this webinar, bookmark these links that I have here on this slide. I put these up. These are all links on Facebook's website, Facebook help files that will point you exactly to where you need to go if you are just getting started and you want to know how to set up your nonprofit to raise money through Facebook, if you want to understand if your nonprofit qualifies. A big question that I often get is about payments and reporting. And I know that this has been something that in the past, it's been difficult to get at donor information. Facebook is saying that they're opening that up now, and you should have access. If your organization is signed up to fundraise with Facebook, you should have access to get reports that include name, amount donated, and email address. And that's really important when you're doing the follow-up and the thank you and the stewardship. Lastly, over to the far right, I've got links to Facebook business news and Facebook product updates. I definitely recommend bookmarking those pages because if you're wanting to stay up to date on all of these fun announcements that Facebook throws at us. Those are the best places to stay up to date with all of this stuff. They regularly put stuff out there. It'll help you easily keep a pulse on what's going on, what changes they're making to the platform, and what you need to know about them. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass it back over to Tracy.
Thank you, Taylor. That information was really helpful. And next up, we have Zanika. Zanika, take it away.
Thank you, Tracy and Taylor. I am going to talk about the power of Facebook Live and online storytelling today. So as Tracy mentioned, my name is Zanika Covington. I am a digital marketing strategist here at MobileCause, and I focus on client engagement and fundraising strategies. So let me start by saying I was quite happy actually to see that the results from the poll were that many of you are trying to figure out what to share and when. I actually feel like that is one of the easiest things to remedy. And second, the no budget for paid ads, well, we can help increase organic traffic. So I want to start by actually taking a step back and placing everything that we've discussed so far today into the larger context of why we're doing this, why we're discussing this topic, why is Facebook relevant. So this is the donor engagement cycle. You're probably very well acquainted with it by virtue of being a nonprofit, but just in case. The way that it starts is that you identify a donor. You then bring them into your network through a process of cultivation, and that sort of commences the cycle. So you cultivate them. That includes a lot of storytelling and explaining why your organization is relevant. And then, of course, that leads into solicitations, which are asks for donations. And then after that, you show stewardship, and you thank your donors and you acknowledge them for their contributions. You show how their contributions help, and then you start right back over in the process of cultivating. So I'm showing you this because this is really the cycle that underpins your need to communicate and reach out to your donors. Also, I want to mention that this is a never-ending cycle, unfortunately. You're always going to be at some stage in the cycle. So, if you've just wrapped up a campaign, you're working on stewardship, and then soon you're going to lead into the cultivation stages again. But it's always going, and it's important to communicate with your donors through every stage. So jumping into storytelling. First, why is storytelling important? Well, people really need to have a clear idea of what your organization does. And I do find sometimes that, you read countless nonprofit websites and they kind of adopt the same sort of more vague, general, overarching language of, we serve and we help and we do this. But diving into the specifics is really where the magic takes place. And the goal is really for your donors to be able to easily sum up what your organization does over, a casual dinner conversation with a colleague or something like that. You want it to be very clear to your donor base what you do. And word of mouth, just on that point, word of mouth is actually very powerful tool when it comes to growing your organization. So it should be easy for somebody else to explain. The second reason why storytelling is important is because people don't really like to read boring content. They just don't engage with it as much. So you want to make it a good read. You want to make it interesting. You want to, create content that feels buzzworthy and relevant. And lastly, it can have a tangible difference on how much money you raise. And I've seen this happen. Just by simply reframing the story, organizations are able to reach a lot further and raise a lot more. So I really, really emphasize the importance of storytelling. So now looking more specifically at the 5 elements on screen, I call this the Pixar framework. And this is really just a template for helping you articulate your organization's story in a concise, interesting, and digestible way. People go to movies all the time, and so they're kind of used to having a story unfold in this sort of format. So introduction is more or less just, an introduction of your organization or the main characters in your organization. The plot is, what does your organization do? Who or what do you serve? What is your mission? Who are your beneficiaries? Who derives value from your organization? Next is the adversaries, or, who are the bad guys? There's always a part in the movie where you meet the good guy and you learn about their life, and then all of a sudden insert the villain. So this takes shape in the form of any obstacles that your organization is facing, whether it be a lack of funding for an initiative or a recent bill that was passed by state legislature that implicates you. Anything that you're working hard to overcome, that is your adversary. Next, we have the conflict, but I also like to call this impact. And this is really where you insert the donor into the story. How can the donor help the good guys defeat the bad guys? Or, how can, to be more specific, how can the donor help you, fight back against a recent law that was enacted? Or, serve more homeless people and provide housing? Anything that you're trying to accomplish, you need to insert the donor in and show how their contribution makes a tangible difference. And then, of course, you have your resolution, or basically the conclusion of the story, and showing the donor how their impact did create a tangible difference. So even if your organization exceeds or doesn't exceed your financial goal for a specific campaign, it is still vitally critical that you let your donor know how you did, and let them know that their contribution was appreciated and still will help make a difference. So now let's get into video. People always say to me, video sounds great, but we don't have a videographer, or we're really short-staffed, or we go, remote a lot of times, and we can't really hire a film crew to come around with us. I can say from experience that some of the most successful campaigns I've ever worked on have included nothing more than selfie footage shot from somebody's cell phone. And some of the reasons are intuitive, video versus text, as in text on a screen. Video, depending on what platform somebody's on, if they're on Instagram or if they're on Facebook, video is autoplay usually. So the chances that somebody actually sees your content is a little bit higher, because they might, skim really quickly past a written out statement, but they'll likely pause at least for a couple seconds to watch a video. And, again, videos are favored by the algorithms of Instagram and Facebook. Facebook owns Instagram. So if you're going to share a message, try as often as possible to share it via video. I worked with a client a few months back, and she had never done video before. She was basically a one-woman organization. She had different volunteers, but she was basically spearheading the whole thing. And she was doing a 10K match gift day. So she had a larger donor that agreed to give 10,000, and her goal was to raise another 10,000 to match it. So, we pitched the idea to her, just empowered her to create some videos. So she did 4 selfie videos in the lead up to the give day, which is critical, because again, you need to cultivate people throughout the cycle, so that by the time it's give day and you're asking them for money, they know actually what the initiative is, they know who it's going to, what it's supporting, and so on. And she quite candidly shot the videos in her living room. She had her hair up, and she even said, she was like, my kids are in the background, don't mind them. This is my mom day. I'm working from home, and I'm here today to tell you about this really important initiative. And the video had massive traction. She exceeded her goal actually on the give day. And, she was just astounded by the outcome. She did not think that it would have such a lasting impact. And I think that heartfelt videos are just as effective, if not even more effective, than high production videos, and definitely more effective than just typing out an email and hitting send. The last thing I wanted to mention here is that she went live on Give Day on Facebook to announce the winning match, which brings me to video tips. So again, you don't need fancy equipment. What is in your pocket is usually fine. And so, again, the more real the footage is, the better. I'm going to skip through this one and look at some video ideas. So again, going back to the storytelling framework and also considering the donor cultivation cycle, there are many ways that you can use video creatively, and that's why, you know, the obstacle of knowing what to share and when, this can really help you combat that as a nonprofit, because there are ways that you can incorporate video in any element of your story. So you can make a video to problematize issues, for example, and obstacles that the organization is facing, or you could even, one of my clients one time took a video and had different beneficiaries of the organization film throughout the day. So it would follow one person's life for about 20 minutes, then another person's life for about 20 minutes, and so on. And it became this, you know, video, this snapshot of these are the lives of the people that we're trying to serve. And it was an incredibly effective tool to get people to really realize that this organization was dealing with something real, and people reached out to ask how they could help. So you can also do videos, of course, when you're doing an ask, and you can tell people how they can get involved. And then you can also do video when you're in the stewardship phases. So it's great to thank your donors publicly on social media. You know, you can ask donors if they're willing to shoot a short segment video as to why they give to you, or, you know, why your organization stands out to them. All of this is really going to expand your reach organically, which also helps combat the issue of not having a budget for paid ads. If you can organically grow your audience, then you're killing two birds with one stone. Oh, went too far. Okay, so Facebook Live. This is new, and for a lot of people, they don't really know, you know, what does this necessarily entail. It's basically just a live video. As Taylor mentioned, the video will stay active for about 24 hours after it's filmed. So it will get added to your story, but it will be filmed as kind of a live story. So even if people tune in late, they can still watch it, and it has that sort of live effect. But before you go live, build momentum. Let people know in advance when you're going live so that they can tune in accordingly. Of course, this will boost visibility and increase engagement. So one great tool is to send text messages to your audience, you know, 30 minutes to say 3 to 4 hours before you go live. You know, you can give them a hint as to what you'll be talking about. You can also email your audience in advance, letting them know that you'll be going live. One of my clients sent an email out a few days prior to going live, and the email had a reminder link in it. So people could actually link the Facebook Live notification to their Google Calendar, so that a couple of days later, it reminded them about 20 minutes in advance, hey, this organization is going live on Facebook in 20 minutes, be sure to tune in. And that was very effective for them. Of course, people who are live on your Facebook can see other people who are in the chat. So it's also nice to boost the audience there, because then people feel like there's a sense of community around what they're watching. You know, other people are watching this too. It kind of creates the illusion that what you're talking about is more relevant. Okay, and then types of announcements to make. Again, if you're going live, some ideas here are to broadcast new initiatives. So if you're launching new programs or something like that, if you're sharing results, impact, or outcomes of previous fundraising engagement, what's happening now, sharing information about, you know, upcoming opportunities to get involved, and honestly, have fun with it. You know, don't take it too seriously. Okay, so I just wanted to touch on this briefly, because this is something that we've introduced pretty recently in light of the new Facebook algorithm changes, which went into effect about mid-January. And Mark Zuckerberg did state explicitly that the goal was to try and create more meaningful engagement between people, kind of like taking Facebook back to its roots, the way that it started, where you see conversations between people and focusing less on ads. And so, of course, that can become even more difficult for your organization, seemingly more difficult because you're thinking, how can I get in front of people? But we kind of found a great workaround to help you achieve that. So when people are making a donation, we have on the right here an organization that added a custom message to their donation form. And it's basically a checkbox that says, you know, I give permission to be acknowledged on social media. And if they want, they can enter in, their Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram handle. We found that when this box is checked, more often than not, people leave it checked. So, they're quite happy to be acknowledged. And then, of course, if they have a preferred platform, it also depends if you're on that platform as well. But then go on and thank them publicly. I mean, this accomplishes a few things. One, it gives you content to post. So if you're trying to figure out what to post, here's an idea. And we know that consistent posting is key to growing your organization's reach. And Facebook also rewards frequent users. So the more often that you're posting, the more that they will boost your post for you. It also, of course, makes your donors feel special, which cultivates them. This is key in the stewardship phase. It's also more incentivizing to, get them to give again. And we do know that is more cost effective for your organization to retain donors instead of going after new ones every single time. And if you're enabled to tag them in a post, this is key. It's going to grow your organization's reach organically because now their friends are going to see that post. So of course, it's a little bit contingent upon certain people's privacy settings. But if I give to an organization, for example, and I give them permission to acknowledge me on Facebook, now I'm going to be tagged in the post. And so it's going to show up on the feed of all of my friends. And, most millennials have 1,000 or more friends because we accept everybody. And so it's really organically growing your audience very effectively. And of course, people are kind of shy to post things on their own. So personally, I, don't post on social media that often, but I go on social media often. But if an organization wants to acknowledge me for my gift, I'm totally fine with that. I am not one to boast about the things I do myself, but if somebody else, gives me a pat on the back, I'm happy to have that shared. So this is a great tool to organically grow the amount of eyes that are seeing your content. Okay, boosting donations. So this campaign, actually, this was with the Steve Harvey Foundation, and it actually went viral. So some of you may have seen this before. But one of our clients, the Steve Harvey Foundation, had a recent success using a multifaceted approach, which culminated in a Facebook Live ask. So they used the MobileCause text to donate system, and they set up a text to donate keyword. It was really funny. Again, this is kind of emphasizing the fact that you should have fun with Facebook Live. Basically, Steve Harvey got up on a treadmill and he set his phone down in front of him so that it would film him. And he said, "I'm not going to stop walking on the treadmill until we reach our goal." While they did that, he pulled up the fundraising thermometer and he had that scrolling in front of him and on screen so that the audience could see it as well. And he basically just acknowledged every donation that was coming in as it was coming in. So he was acknowledging gifts of $5, of $500, and it actually even increased people, texting in because they wanted their name to be called out. So it was a really clever and effective tool to get people to engage and donate. And I also wanted to mention here that, again, they used multiple channels to promote this campaign. So they didn't rely solely on Facebook Live. They did emails, they did a lot of social media posts, they did text messaging, and they just used Facebook Live creatively for the campaign finale. And of course, the campaign was a massive success. They raised over $1 million. And whether you have Steve Harvey at your disposal or not, there are definitely many ways that you can creatively use Facebook to your advantage. So I encourage all of you to think creatively, try and think outside the box, and feel empowered to take this on and share your organization's story. And I'm going to hand it back over to Tracy now.
Thank you, Zanika, for sharing such valuable insight. And now let's take another quick poll. Now that you've heard about several Facebook fundraising ideas, which one are you most interested in trying? And I'll launch the poll. So please take a moment. Responses are Facebook ads, video or live stream, text to keyboard, text messaging, or opt-in to tag donors. And thank you. It seems the most is a video to live stream. Thank you. We're now going to switch gears for a few minutes to answer any questions that folks may have. Let's see, our first question. Zanika, how do I know if my donors want to receive text messages? I'm worried I'll upset them.
We do get this question from time to time. My best advice on that front is segment your lists. So we never recommend, coming right out and texting your entire donor database because, of course, some of it is trial and error. How do you know that any form of communication is the most effective for reaching your audience? So we always recommend segmenting. That means basically just choosing, a specific subset of donors and starting with them. Maybe if you have added information about them, it can help inform your decision. If you know that they're under a certain age, maybe they're more likely to engage, or if they've been really involved in the organization, versus somebody who you haven't heard from in 6, 7, 8 years. So I recommend segmenting to start, and that's going to give you tremendous insight right off the bat, because when you know who you're talking to, you know how to talk to them a lot more than, blindly reaching out to, 800 to 18,000, however many people are in your donor database. But on that front, I think people are often quite surprised to see the yield. I've worked with a few clients who really were nervous to try out text messaging. They think we've never done this before, and the results are always very surprising. And in fact, I think what's even more surprising than getting a good response is the age factor. A lot of people think, well, my donors are too old for this, but we've actually found that oftentimes people, in an older demographic are even more responsive to text messages. So it just depends. I always recommend starting segmenting, but you have to try, you have to give it a shot, because people always have their phones on them, and it really is a very effective communication tool.
Thanks, Annika. Our next question, Taylor, we are concerned about overwhelming people with too many Facebook posts. How do we know how many and when to post?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that what I'll say to that is test and then measure. So, if you're worried about overwhelming people with too much, I would err on the side of then don't post like 3 times a day every day or anything like that. But, start doing some posting. If you want to post once a day, I think that that's highly appropriate. If you want to post once a week, I think that that's often a starting point for people, especially if you have, a small team and a small staff and you're trying to do a lot with a little. But I would say start doing it and then go to your Facebook insights and measure and report and see if, what you want to look for is you want to look for if people are starting to get more engaged. Is your engagement going up or is it dropping? If it's dropping, that could be an indicator that maybe it is a little bit too much. I do think that there is something that can be too much content. And in a world where there is so much content being put out by so many different people all the time, I do think that if you think that you need to post every day or post several times a day, that can be too much. So I would say start doing things and then test and look for patterns in your engagement.
Thank you, Taylor. Our next question, Zanika, do you have any other examples of companies that have had success through storytelling or Facebook Live, even if they aren't nonprofits?
Yeah, I can think of a ton. I don't know. So if you want a for-profit example, Airbnb just used Facebook Live very effectively to communicate a big product enhancement. And I actually did the same thing with them that I did with another client. So they sent out an email a couple of days prior that had a sort of RSVP link in it, and you could click the link and it would put it on your calendar so that then on that day and time, you're reminded to tune in and watch. So there's a for-profit example. But with storytelling, that is I think that's a cornerstone of every successful fundraising initiative. You know, if you just keep putting out your hand and just asking for donations, it gets harder and harder every time. Whereas if you're telling a story, you know, you don't even hold out your hand, people just hand you money because they know what you're, you know, they know what you're doing. They know how you're adding value to society and to certain people or you know, subsets within that society. So a specific example would be kind of hard to come by off the top of my head, but I could certainly follow up with some specific examples. I often email them to other clients that I'm working with. So I'd be happy to provide some of those.
Thanks, Annika. Our next question is for Taylor. Taylor, do you have any advice for boosting if that's all you can afford to do?
Sure. Yeah, and one thing I'll say, and I didn't cover this, but it's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up, is you can determine whether you're boosting a post or creating an ad campaign, you can kind of determine how much you want to put into it. So if you've got $10 or $20 to put into it, that's okay. That's a starting point. If you're just getting started with wanting to do some boosted posts to drive that engagement and awareness, I would say, you know, look at what your budget is, but maybe start with something as small as $20 to $25 and see how that goes. You don't, I've just, in my own personal experience practicing this, you don't have to put a ton of money behind boosted posts to start getting a lot more eyeballs and impressions on it. So start with $20, get going from there. If you're seeing success with it, that's when you might want to start. You know, if you do several boosted posts with $20 to $25 behind them, that's when you might want to start saying, okay, we need to really allocate a marketing budget to this, and this is how much we think we want to put in. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Taylor. Our next question, Zanika, can you tell me more about text messaging and how I can incorporate that into my social strategy?
Of course. So with the Mobile Cause platform, you basically, when you get an account, you can upload a list to the system, and you can upload as many lists as you want, and the system will, you know, vet for you which numbers are mobile and which aren't. So then, say from a list of 18,000, it could verify that, you know, 12,800 are mobile numbers. You can then send text messages to your audience through our platform. And of course, I talked about segmenting. So I often encourage clients to, you know, think in advance what would be some natural sort of synergies or ways in which to break up your list. So maybe you have one that's just for the board, you know, one that's for, you know, 35 and under, or else maybe it's, you know, donors who are less than a year old, or donors that are 3 or more years old. I mean, in terms of how long they've been donating to your organization, not their actual age. But I recommend, you know, starting with lists, and then you can, you know, I mean, you can virtually send anything you want. So it can vary from, you know, say that there's an event happening today and you know who's coming to the event. You could text all of the registrants and say, hey, just as a reminder, you know, here are the parking directions, parking instructions for the event, or it's raining, bring an umbrella, something like that. Over to, you know, that there's a reminder that there's a board meeting tomorrow. This is the, you know, location and time that we're meeting, etc. To, you know, communicating updates that happen with your organization. So we have one organization in particular that works against human trafficking, and so they built an opt-in keyword where people basically say, I want to subscribe to receiving alerts whenever you know, there's a new case of trafficking that's been discovered. And so this organization will send messages to those people to let them know, hey, you know, the police are investigating this area. Please stay tuned. We'll let you know when we have more information. You know, I have another organization that's animal rescue, and they'll send out a new picture of the puppies or the animals that they bring in to people so that they can see what animals are going to be up for adoption soon. And so, I mean, you can really get as creative as you want with it. But I mean, there's plenty of ways to segment. There's plenty of different types of content to do. Of course, obviously, you know, you can also do an ask. So soliciting people for donations. But it's just a great tool to engage. It's really one of the most effective tools I think that there is.
Thank you, Zanika, and thank you for everyone. Now, due to the volume of questions, we couldn't answer everyone, but you can email marketing@mobilecause.com and we'll get back to you with an answer. If you're interested in learning more about what you've heard today, you can speak directly with a fundraising expert at Mobile Cause by answering the survey at the close of our presentation today. Or you can call 888-661-8804 or visit gomobilecause.com/request-demo. And once again, thank you to our presenters and thank you for attending. You will receive the webinar recording and slide presentations shortly. And if you're feeling lucky with St. Paddy's Day just around the corner, look out for a lucky demo giveaway in your inbox. Happy event planning and have a wonderful day.